That Naturopathic Podcast. TNP.
Hello there.
Hi, and thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. Michelle Pobega, naturopathic doctor.
And I'm Dr. David Miller, ND, and we hear your frustrations. This show is for you.
This show is for you if you're feeling like your current healthcare strategy is not getting to the root cause or the underlying reasons for your health.
This show is for you if you've been told that you're fine, but you definitely don't feel very well.
This show is for you if you're walking out of your doctor's office with 1, 2, 3, 4, or even 5 medications without any mention of diet, lifestyle, or a long-term game plan.
This show is for you if you've got several specialists taking care of you, but no one is really putting all the pieces together.
This show is for you if you believe that health should be part of healthcare. These problems have solutions.
We know it.
Our patients know it.
And we want you to know it.
Naturopathic medicine is the solution that you should know about.
Hey, welcome to another episode of That Naturopathic Podcast. Dr. David Miller, ND, here with Dr. Michelle Pobega, ND. I almost forgot how to do my intro there, and it's pretty modest intro.
And we've only done it 180 times, but that's fine.
I was distracted looking at the Babylon Bee, which you have just enlightened me with. I'm going to check out the Babylon Bee as a fake news site that I can really trust.
The headlines are hilarious, and they basically say what everyone's thinking, but nobody wants to say out loud, which is great.
Let's I'm going to do one of the headlines from the Babylon Bee, which is relevant for what we're going to talk about today.
Hit me. Biden
says he can't remember a single time when his memory has failed him. Okay, so we're going to talk about one of our favorite. Is it our favorite? It's definitely my favorite adaptogen herb, ashwagandha.
Yeah. It is a pretty good staple. I think as a naturopath, I think you can appreciate why this deserves a shout out. As an herbalist, I think you would appreciate why this deserves a shout out. I tend to use it quite frequently. I think most in the last year and a half, I've really focused on using formulations to calm the nervous system and the stress response down. And the core ingredient in them is typically ashwagandha, so that people can have a better quality sleep. And then when they wake up, their stress resiliency is better. That has been key. And I don't know, so many people have come back and been like, thank you for that formula. I finally sleep. My energy is better throughout the day. I don't feel like a raging psychopath anymore. So it's a staple.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's in the Latin binomial, right? It's Withania somnifera, right? Somnifera means sleep, helps you sleep. So if you ever forget one of the reasons that herb is so good, guys, look at your Latin origins. Somnifera.
I mean, when we came out of school, I always very much viewed it as adaptogenic stress resiliency. So for people who are not therapists, naturopaths, healers, an adaptogen is something that helps you adapt to stress. So something like ashwagandha is really beautiful, where it's not just revving the engine in one way and causing an exhaustive amount of energy expenditure. It internally also allows you to roll with the ups and downs of stress, and it will modulate its effects inside of you. Just like mushrooms are really modulating and smart and intelligent, this herb has that same type of quality to it.
You're going to love when I tell you what is going on from my research mechanistically. You're just going to love it. All this talk of stress, you're just going to love it. Yeah.
So
anyway,
yeah,
give us an overview, maybe some of the reasons it's used, because as an adaptogen, like you said, you can almost like make an excuse to use it for anyone.
Yeah.
Right. But do you want to give some other guiding principles?
Yeah, bringing it to the headline, the fake amazing headline you gave us, there's research into neuroprotective and anti-neurodegenerative effects. So there's been research in Alzheimer's disease, as well as Parkinson's disease. There's been research in Huntington's disease, OCD and obsessive compulsive disorder, alcohol withdrawal syndrome. There's some cool stuff coming out from that. It also has some anti-inflammatory and immunomodulating properties, which isn't any surprise, because when you work on the stress response, you can thereby also support the immune system. It can be used for infertility treatments, according to some, and I know that it can be used as something that helps with testosterone production. So in some testosterone supportive formulas that I've used for men, ashwagandha has been a definitely key player in those formulas as well. It can have some anti-diabetic properties, cardiovascular support, sleep treatment, anti-stress and anxiolytic. So it can calm the nervous system and reduce cortisol response so that you're not just like revving at a like vibration that's like wild, which is why I use it at night to help people's nervous system and cortisol response come down and stress response so they can get a better quality sleep. Because if you're waking up throughout the night, that's usually a stress related response. It's usually your cortisol kicking into gear at the wrong time. And like I said, it's also an adaptogen. So it helps the individual to cope with stress and adapt to changes, which is really awesome. And then I found a study that it's a PubMed study, and they were looking at the safety and efficacy of ashwagandha root extract on cognitive functions in healthy but stressed adults. And it was a randomized double-blind placebo control trial. And what they found that treatment with one type of ashwagandha capsule once daily for 90 days improved memory, improved focus, psychological well-being, sleep quality, reduced stress levels, and was also safe and very well tolerated. So it's kind of badass.
Yeah, and that's why I'd recommend it for Joe Biden, because I mean it seems
amongst
it
other things.
seems yeah, and amongst other people, I'm sure as well.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, how many people do? I was thinking about this because I use this optimal glutathione plus lozenge all the time in clinic, and it's fascinating to see people's response to it within 5 or 10 minutes, and it seems to help people's nervous system, and that's like a very yangy sort of like quick acting nervous
Yeah.
system support. Ashwagandha is more just like my yin version of that. It's a very nourishing
Mm.
thing, but its nervous system affinity is definite, and its affinity as a or its ability as a anti-inflammatory is like it's a home run. It really is.
It's not something we would typically think of for inflammation though. So, which is interesting. But I guess because cortisol does and stress response will have an impact on inflammation. So maybe that's where.
Especially neuroinflammation, I guess is what I'm
Yeah.
getting at. This specifically neuroinflammation, hence the
Got it.
Joe Biden. Yeah, and then cerebral ischemia, could probably use a bit of help there. I've seen him walk, his gait is off, so that's a good sign of there being some neurodegeneration going on.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is not to trash Joe Biden. It seemed relevant. Sometimes life just gives you, the juxtaposition of a couple of things to make it funnier.
Yeah.
Okay, most of
What
my so
yeah. Tell
go
me what
on.
you found. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
Oh.
so most of my info goes from like a lot like so when I came out of naturopathic college, I kind of had this idea like, okay, adaptogens are cool, but like also can we be more precise with them? Because like I don't, they're so non-specific in their
Mm,
like definition.
right.
So I knew about it. I thought it was cool. Heard some stuff about, thyroid, heard some stuff, specific maybe studies and specific utility in testosterone and things like that. That's great, but I actually got a lot of filling in of the blanks or like a different kind of insight from looking into I have this Dr. Bean website that I love. He's an MD. Mobeen, I forget his name. He just goes by Dr. Bean. He's really cool. And his mechanistic understandings are really good, and he draws pictures, and so he's got a bit of a right brain thing going on too. And so a lot of what I colored in a lot of the spaces or filled in a lot of the spaces with more of like a mechanistic understanding from Dr. Bean.
Mm-hmm.
So and this is what I wanted to share with you, and I didn't tell you before because I kind of wanted to like just share it with you on air. Is that what it's called? I don't know. Are we on air? We're recording, whatever. You know what it appears a big part of what ashwagandha does is it actually helps with on a intracellular level, helps with um, intracellular and extracellular stressors. But so it's actually heat shock proteins that it seems to be this is what's so cool. It actually now when you understand what heat shock proteins do, which so when you have damage to a cell or you have damage to the proteins that are made within a cell, sometimes they're salvageable and sometimes they are like foobarred. Like they are absolutely cocked up beyond like any use, and we just sort of break them down and pull out the amino acids. But you can get all these aggregations of like big nasty proteins. Like we know about these proteins. You probably learned about it. Remember in school, like learn about tau proteins and all these proteins that sort of accumulate in Alzheimer's disease. And the
Right.
cell has a tough time getting rid of, like, it's actually just full of absolute junk. It's full of
Mhm.
these entangled proteins. So what ashwagandha, a lot of what it does, and I'm not going to say this is exclusively what it does, but it seems to help with the proper management of these somewhat misfolded, damaged proteins on an intracellular level.
Cool.
Yeah, really cool. Like that and no, so now that makes sense why it seems to have this non-specific helper aspect to its like uh identity as an adaptogen, because even on an intracellular level, it's helping the sort of biochemical junk that is downstream from stressors and everything. It's helping us cope with those on an intracellular level. And I just thought that was the coolest shit ever, because it I've struggled with this non-specific, very, it seemed overgeneralized kind of application of adaptogens. Well, here's why. The
Mm-hmm.
cells literally are being influenced by ashwagandha, at least, and maybe this is happening with other less researched adaptogens too. They're helping them fold properly, or like go into apoptosis and deal with the downstream uh stressors of biochemical or other stressors. I just think that's so cool.
Yeah, and I think I feel like that's an interesting point to bring into the conversation, because a lot of times when people think about stress, they think of external stress emotionally affecting them. So even when I ask people in clinic, I was like, "Are you stressed?" "No, I'm not stressed." And then we talk about the
Mhm.
pace of their life, and they feel they because they cope, or they mentally feel like they can handle the stress, even though they go at a crazy pace, that they're okay. But I'm like, you're in traffic all the time, you're frustrated there, you have financial pressures, like you have deadlines all the time for work, even though you love your job and you're fine and you always manage to make the deadlines, and you're running around, you have kids and this and that. All of that turns into stress. Chemical pollution turns into stress, but we forget that internally our body also creates, there's
Mhm.
imbalances. Anything that throws your body off of homeostasis will be seen as an internal stress. So if there's an accumulation of garbage inside your body, then that now becomes a new type of stress for your body to have to handle. So it's not just the emotional stress that we get from external stimuli. And I think this particular nugget of information that you brought in is showing how it's also working on that internal biochemical, uh
Intracellular.
even intracellular, and like metabolic waste and all
That's
that,
so cool.
like it's really cool, that type of stress, which is really awesome.
So that was only sort of one main aspect
Yeah.
of what it does, but it also seems to be very helpful in terms of, so it's mitigating, so it's refolding and stabilizing proteins that are denatured or sort of compromised structurally and therefore functionally, until conditions improve. And he just kind of breezed over that, and I looked in a study too, and it says until conditions improve, which I thought was very relevant to bring up, because it, I think in the end, you can't just take ashwagandha and keep doing all the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, good point.
Like it's gonna help. It's gonna help mitigate or minimize the biochemical and other sort of stress. But until conditions improved, I thought was like, okay, so we got to change something as well.
Yeah.
Not just leave it as it is. So
Yeah.
that was cool.
It's
And
I think that's really key, Dave, because a lot of people come to us as naturopaths for something they can take. But I always, when I do a disclaimer in a meet and greet with the patient, I'm always like, you have to be radically responsible for your health. And if you don't make changes, things are not going to change. And a pill
mhm.
is only going to take you so far. Same thing with
Yeah,
ashwagandha.
it's hard to say, but it's, well, it gets easier to say, but it's very true.
I mean, I just put that out there right from the jump because I want people to have realistic expectations about what it is
Yeah.
they want from life and what are they willing to do to get there.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there are some things you may never be able to change, but there's a lot of things that people can change about how they live their life that reduces unnecessary stress that we just don't choose to invest more into, you know what I mean? Or
Hmm.
or make changes in. So I appreciate that statement like a lot, a lot, a lot.
The Yeah, so then it seems to not only so it seems to help specifically glial cells, which is so cool. There's even some research in glioma and actually COVID downstream sort of long COVID stuff. Of course, it's not going to work in everyone, but I think what we should say here is that the more there's an inflammatory cascade, the more it involves NF kappa beta, that cell survival pathway, the more this stuff's going to help, and the more it's related to nerves specifically. I think
Mm-hmm.
the application becomes more precise that way, and it seems to also help with not just the mitigating of the risk or of the damage. It helps with neuronal plasticity and regeneration.
Amazing.
That's the JNK pathway, a different pathway that beyond the heat shock proteins. But man, what a herb, I mean, what an application. I ever since I've been using the glutathione, I'm like, who sits down in my black chair and shares their, whatever history and desires with their healthcare and doesn't have a gut or a nerve issue. Like
Yeah,
everyone's got at least one or maybe both of those issues as a sort of broad way of categorizing.
I agree. Yeah. There's this, yeah,
I
it's
took this
wild.
twice today. I took ashwagandha twice today.
Well, I take it twice now. So I started taking it again recently. Like I've done adaptogenic herbs here and there, but there has been some more different challenges in my life personally, which I'm not going to share in the episode. However, the last few months have been a bit of a roller coaster. And I ended up going to my doctor at one point, and my thyroid was a little bit wonky. So my TSH levels were a little bit higher than they would like. They were not above medical reference ranges, which I'm impressed that the doctor was still keen on talking to me
Hmm.
about it.
Hmm.
But when I had tested them like 6 months prior, they were fine. So I was like, okay. And he automatically said, do you want to start Synthroid? I said, no, thank you. I would like to check some naturopathic approaches first. And I would like to do a full thyroid panel because they only run TSH. And so I independently ran T3, T4 and everything a month after implementing some strategies. Um, and bringing ashwagandha into the mix was a key player.
Hmm.
So I take it before bed and I take, not to shamelessly plug any specific product, but mine is specifically blended with L-theanine. So I take it before bed. With my magnesiums, I take one before bed, and then I also take one in the morning to maintain my stress response during the day. And I did a few other things for my thyroid. And within a month's time, the doctors were like, "Did you take Synthroid?" And I said, "No." They're like, "Well, your numbers are better." They were and I said, no, I just took some key nutrients and I worked on my stress resiliency. And I also took a homeopathic. And they were kind of like, huh, just what you doing? And I was like, thanks, man. But
That's funny.
I found a PubMed article that further it was a double-blind randomized placebo control trial for subclinical hypothyroid patients because mine wasn't like grossly out of sorts. And this one did find that treatment with ashwagandha was beneficial for normalizing various thyroid indices in subclinical hypothyroid patients specifically. So just FYI, it's often in various formulations for thyroid health when it comes to naturopathic herbal formulas. A lot of times ashwagandha is again like a really star player in those formulas in addition to other things. But that was part of my healing journey and I'm still continuing to take it. Because even though the acute stresses are done, sometimes it takes your body a little bit of time to bounce back from those acute stressors. So I'm
Hmm.
continuing to just maintain that one as opposed to all the other things that I was doing for my thyroid. But yeah,
Hmm.
just a little anecdotal thing, personal. Hmm.
No, it adds a lot. I think that sort of stuff adds a lot. And one thing I also want to add, just to be clear, if people are listening and they've got like a really um hyperactive immune system, this is actually one of those herbs, like another one of our favorite herbs,
Astragalus.
andrographis.
Oh,
No,
andrographis.
andrographis I was thinking of, because this, like andrographis, actually is an immune stimulant. So
Mm.
it's not like a balancer as you might get from, like, well, astragalus I think is more of just like an immune balancer.
Astragalus is more of like, is more adaptogenic like in its immune properties, right? Where it balances and it ebbs and flows with what you need, like a mushroom. It's modulating. That's the word, modulating.
Yeah, it's a modulator. This one, it definitely tends to be more of a stimulator of the innate arm of the immune system. So
Okay.
the only caution I would say is, like, if you're on some sort of like immune suppressants, this, it would probably be more a theoretical sort of caution
Right.
or a theoretical contraindication, but I would think just be careful in that case, because it is actually going to stimulate that immune system, especially the innate immune system.
I mean, that's good. And it's also something that I don't think there's enough studies to verify its safety and efficacy in things like pregnancy. If you do have a thyroid
Is there
condition,
ever?
no, if you do have a thyroid condition, please make sure you're working with a qualified health professional to make sure it's the right fit for what your needs are and your medications. Um, I'm not taking anything pharmaceutical, and I know my body pretty well. And I understand the pharmacokinetics. So I added in, but I don't want people to just go and like jump and grab this and think they're going to fix their thyroid. So please be mindful about how you approach herbal medicine, because just because it's natural doesn't mean it's safe for everybody or it's the right thing at the right time for you.
But it's more likely safe.
But it's probably awesome.
Oh God.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna check off my list here, make sure my
Yeah.
notes are all sort of, so we talked about anti-inflammatory, immune stimulant. We didn't say anything. Did we say anything anti-cancer?
No, but I wouldn't be surprised based on what you told me about like its internal mechanisms with like,
Exactly. So I think that's probably where that's coming from. Apparently, and I don't have the specific reference for this, but lowering blood sugar.
yeah,
So
I did see something about that with
you did?
anti-diabetic effects. Where was
Yeah.
that? It was in the one that was like a meta-analysis of like hundreds of studies. And there was a part that was talking about anti-diabetic effect. Um I'd have to look into this. So something confirmed that with a ferrin A, I guess an extract can effectively control induced type 1 diabetes in rats through the modulation of NRF2 and FKB signaling, and therefore has
Yeah,
significant potential for therapy.
NF kappa
Um,
beta. That's
yeah,
one of the main
sorry, NF kappa
mechanisms.
beta. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I don't know why I was just like saying it like that. Um, One clinical study from the year 2000 also showed a direct blood glucose lowering effect. And on the other hand, many studies have also shown beneficial effects on the lipidemic profile, so cholesterol as well, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I would say the more you've got some sort of indication for inflammation, specifically neuroinflammation, the more stress is part of the picture. I'd say that's the people that are going to benefit the most, because, like, let's look at because this ashwagandha apparently can help lower blood pressure in some people. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so who is it going to help lower blood pressure in more? Someone who's like pretty chill but 350 pounds and doesn't do much exercise, and they sleep enough, but it's more metabolic stressors in a sense, versus someone who's like go crazy all the time,
Right.
stress. If I had to pick which of those people who both have issues with blood pressure, it's going to be the second one. So that's,
100%.
yeah, that's sort of how I would go about this. And it's funny, if you look at the traditional rasayana, as a rasayana, that's like, I'm probably saying it wrong, someone will be offended. Like an Ayurvedic term for basically like an adaptogen.
Yeah.
The indications in that form of medicine are general debility, consumption, nervous exhaustion, insomnia, and loss of memory, kind of like a loss of strength and everything too. That sort of goes
Yeah.
along with the um the idea of NF kappa beta too.
Yeah. This is like, so this herb has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for centuries. And that's where that asayana, is that what it was?
Rasayana.
Rasayana.
I'm
So,
saying it wrong for sure. Like someone's
well,
offended, right?
I'm
Whatever.
well, hopefully not offended, and just understand
Probably
that
they
we're
are
just
though.
two white people trying to pronounce something we don't have full knowledge
We're
with. So anyways,
trying.
we're
We're
trying, guys. It's
trying,
fine.
guys.
So, but this is like the essential properties. So I have this like plant witchery book, which
Oh
is my shit,
yes.
is my shit.
Yes, you were supposed to bring
And
that out.
yeah. And so Ashwagandha, and it says the essential properties are healing, strength, and amplification. That's how they characterize it, as like
Oh, cool. Yeah.
the subheading. And then for medicinal properties, they refer to it as a she in here. So if I say she, we're talking about the ashwagandha plant. Treats arthritis, anxiety, depression, fibromyalgia, insomnia, menstrual concerns, liver disease, and asthma. And it can improve mental function and work also as an aphrodisiac. And it can also be taken internally and used into a salve to treat like wounds and skin conditions, according to this book. And then it has a section called magical properties, which tickles my fancy. Apparently she is powerful spiritually and medicinally. It's her presence is to in your life awakens a life force energy, constantly feeding you strength and healing. If you are able, purchase the plant and care for her, and she can work through you through her dried roots as well. Right. So they say you can also use it as like a soak to help cleanse your auric field, as a bath. You can drink it as a tea. If you need it to feel grounded, that's also where ashwagandha can help from like a magical property or like that healing properties. And then also from a plant wisdom perspective, it is seen as a very sacred plant, and that the wisdom lives in the spirit of connectivity. She helps you become aligned with both your higher self and the earth beneath your feet, and can help you navigate whatever hardships come your way, whispering to you, offering you guidance on your next steps. She teaches you how to find strength, find the strength you need within yourself, and the knowledge that you can break through even the most troubling of times. And then they say you can invite her into your dreams by sipping her tea before going to bed. And I just
I
love how
like
that's
her.
written. Isn't it sweet? Yeah, she's
It
a rock
is.
star. So I love that they refer to her as a she. But yeah, I just liked bringing that type, because we can get very medicinal, we can get very analytical studies and stuff like that, but there's a wisdom to plants that gets lost when we just talk about it from a Western medicine perspective. And same thing with like phytogens and gemotherapies. There's like flower essences. There's an energetic component to these plants that also speak to how it helps our systems heal beyond just the biochemical and phytochemical properties. So I wanted to bring that into the conversation.
This as much as any plant medicine that we've talked about, at least, or that I know of, the traditional use completely mirrors what we know about its mechanistic application
Yeah.
or understanding of how it works. And even like I was saying, the consumption, that's an old term. Like they used to call tuberculosis phthisis or consumptive diseases, because you
Yeah.
actually waste away. That's NRF kappa beta. That's NRF
Yeah.
kappa beta is what makes people it's a major contributor to cachexia in cancer. It's NRF
Yeah.
kappa beta. So like man, all of these sort of different perspectives are aligned in and overlap in some Venn diagram of ashwagandha, which is
And
so
it's
cool.
the thing is, it would not have been used for centuries in Ayurvedic medicine if there wasn't benefit to it. The only thing that's different now is that we can quantify with scientific data why it worked for centuries.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only difference that we have now, right? Is that we can quantify things a little bit better, which is pretty cool. Like you were saying, like, there's this wisdom in the plant, and they knew how to use it back in the day, but they probably couldn't fully explain why. And now we
Yeah,
can explain a little
exactly.
bit more of the why. And it's pretty cool. But don't forget about the wisdom of plants and stuff like that too. Like there is something about that. Like even I always remember like rhodiola being a really uh resilient shrub that grows like deep in like harsh conditions in the Himalayas, and rhodiola is also an adaptogen. So if you think about the environment in which the plant grows in, and it's still able to thrive under harsh conditions, think about what that does energetically and internally when you take that herb in as well. There's a beauty and there's a magic and there's a wisdom to these types of plants that I hope that people don't lose.
Yeah, and think about the arrogance of like a real evidence-based medicine perspective where they don't take 2 to 3,000 years of um application into their understanding, let's say, of within the parameters of what they believe, right?
Exactly.
That's a kind of arrogance, I think, and that's why I like hearing the, you know, about ashwagandha, the she, and the 2 to 3,000 years of use that totally correlates with how we use it. It's really cool.
It's pretty awesome. So guys, ashwagandha, she shines as an adaptogen and something that helps with not only internal stresses, but your ability to adapt to external stresses, and really good for strength and vitality and healing. Awesome, awesome herb, guys.
Yeah, get it in you.